Dear crypto community, blockchain buddies across the globe, welcome back to Cryptonites. One of the most critical ways to grow our wealth, make money over time, is to find the right blockchains. Which token should I buy, should I hodl, and should I earn interest on, or YODL? Well, before even jumping into that, we really need to understand what's the difference between a layer 0, a layer 1, or a layer 2 infrastructure. And once understanding that, we can help you make better decisions on which blockchain tokens are best for you. So let's enjoy. So what is a layer 0 protocol? Well, essentially, it is the data layer where blockchains can build on top of that layer, so a bottom layer or infrastructure that help the blockchains run their own chains. And for the lack of a better name, it's kind of like the blockchain of blockchains or the internet of blockchains. And for those reasons, I put right behind me, as you guys can see here, it's an empty land. So a layer 0 is really like an empty land where you can build your own ecosystem on top of it. And here are some examples of the empty land. Number one, we have Polkadot. Polkadot is a layer 0 because it has a relay chain and it has parachains. So the parachains, these specific blockchains that build on top of the Polkadot layer, can actually decide the rules, the governance system, whether they want to be more decentralized or not, whether they want to be public or private. They can literally run their own rules. So that is a good example of a layer 0 protocol or chain. And then we also have Cosmos. For the Cosmos fans out there, Cosmos is a layer 0 because it also allows you to run your own network, your own chain, and do whatever you want with it. It's complete freedom. And what's exciting about layer 0s is obviously, right, if you build the right infrastructure where many people want to come build on top of it and create their own ecosystems, you're going to take this empty land that we have behind us and make it an amazing city, an amazing world, civilization. So really the layer 0 is the foundational infrastructure or bottom layer where people can build on top of it. Now you must be thinking, okay, if I want to make good returns, I need to only choose layer 0s. But that's not necessarily always the case, because what if the land itself is not attractive to other people? It will just remain a desert. What if it doesn't have the resources, the commodities, something that makes people want to come? Then it will not necessarily be valuable. Although layer 0s to me is quite a bullish type of investment, and this is not financial advice, if they attract the right people. Now let's move on to layer 1s. Next up, let's have a look at layer 1 protocols, which are much more common, so probably easier to understand. So layer 1 protocols are essentially a decentralized database that allow you to build decentralized applications on top. Very different from your iPhone or Android, because Apple or Google do not own these applications. It is us, the community, it's giving back to society, and that is one of the main narratives when it comes to transitioning from Web 2 to Web 3. Okay, so for the lack of better analogies, previously we used a completely deserted road for layer 0, and here for layer 1 we're using a highway. With some infrastructure, tons of transactions. A motorcycle could be a microtransaction, a truck could be a large transaction, which requires gas and gas fees. So the layer 1s really need to find applications that motivate people to use their chain, and that's really critical. On the flip side, if the chain doesn't scale, which is one of the biggest issues as of today, the actual highway gets congested, fees become higher, and the chain becomes slower and actually crashes at times. So these are things to know and to understand the difference between a layer 0 and a layer 1. We know that layer 0 needs people to build their blockchains around it in order to be relevant, or else it's just a desert. And we know that layer 1, they need to have great applications and also be able to scale, of course, in both cases to be successful. And here are some examples of the actual layer 1 kings or queens as of today. Ethereum, which has the longest track record, the most developers, has the most transactions, has the most total value locked across all chains over the course of the past 5 to 6 years. And then, of course, we have Binance Smart Chain that has been doing really well. They compromised on decentralization in order to get more speed and efficiency for costs. And more recently, amongst the top 20 by market cap layer 1 protocols, we have Terra that has been on a tear, literally surpassing $20 billion of total value locked, and is getting more and more traction and adoption, even in these bearish or corrected markets. And then Avalanche, which is difficult to actually qualify because with Avalanche, you can create what they call a subnet. And a subnet is similar to the Polkadot parachain, where you can create your own kind of blockchain, but they still consider themselves a layer 1. So let's keep it simple. And these are layer 1 protocols. So without further ado, one massive problem that we have today with regards to layer 1 protocols is what we call the blockchain trilemma. As you can see here, this hypothesis or theory is basically telling us that we cannot achieve maximum scalability, maximum security, or maximum decentralization all at once. You have to compromise one in order to benefit the other. So for instance, Bitcoin is the most decentralized and secure chain of all, but it had to compromise its scalability, and for those reasons rely on layer 2 protocols and scaling solutions, which we'll cover next. Ethereum has more validator nodes than any other layer 1 blockchain out there besides Bitcoin, and for those reasons it's super decentralized and also super secure, but again, we know that it's struggling with scalability. So some of the chains in the layer 1s like Solana and Binance Smart Chain are focusing on scalability and speed and security while compromising the decentralization in order to solve a specific problem that we have. Next up, layer 2 protocols. So what if the layer 1 solution was congested, had too much traffic during a rush hour, we're going nuts because we want to go home? Well, in that case, we may try to find side roads or maybe Elon Musk's hypertunnel so that we can reach our destination cheaper and faster than we initially planned. And I think this is probably the best analogy for a layer 2 scaling solution or infrastructure. They simply want to make sure that whenever the main highway or main roads are congested, that you have a plan B, that you could continue to transact the way you want to. And some examples of layer 2 protocols are Polygon, obviously, which is an Ethereum shard, kind of like a side chain. And then you have also recently Loopring that has been doing extremely well, and also Arbitrum, which is also a layer 2 solution. Next up, quick quiz, guys. Give me an example of a layer 0, layer 1, layer 2. Do you remember? Hopefully you do. But now let's look at this from the lens of an investor, right? You must be thinking, yeah, but this is all great information, but what should I buy and why? Well, if we don't have time to do proper research, test out the chains, which we'll talk about in a future episode, it may be good just to diversify your portfolio, ask around, look at some of the basics, and definitely try out the chain itself, right? Because some of them are very clunky, some of them have many failures, the transactions don't go through, some of them are super smooth, the UX UI is amazing. So of course, try before you buy is one of the core principles. But generally speaking, layer 0s are more attractive because then you have all the layers of blockchains and applications on top of it if it's successful. But its challenge is to really get proper projects to build their own chains on top of it. Layer 1s obviously need to attract projects to build awesome applications on top of it, right? So there's always challenge in terms of scaling the possibilities. And then layer 2, obviously it's a great temporary solution, but what I worry about when it comes to layer 2s are, what if ETH 2.0 actually succeeds in its transition and no longer relies on layer 2 technologies? So the layer 2 could become completely irrelevant. However, some may say that even with Ethereum 2.0, in transitioning and finding a more scalable solution, it will always need side roads. So it's really hard to say. And some layer 2 protocols are actually considering building their own layer 1 because they realize that layer 2s are a bit riskier and can become quickly irrelevant.